It was early evening when Elena checked the clock in her loft studio, heart pounding at the realization of her impossible deadline. 3 hours of daylight left, 2 days until the gallery submission, and she was completely without a model. The rhythmic buzz of the city wafted through the open windows, a faint reminder that time never paused, not even for the pressure-laden demands of a photographer in need of brilliance. She wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead, her nerves adding to the swirl of creative ideas she still hoped to capture in the camera's lens. She was perched on a stool by her large oak work table, surrounded by tangles of cords, photographic filters, and folded reflectors. The area smelled of old coffee and fresh paint from the newly retouched backdrop she had been working on for days. Swallowing her panic, Elena glanced through her phone contacts again. Yet another message confirming her regular model was unavailable flickered across the screen. No matter how she tried to reschedule, the timing simply would not align. Then her assistant, Miguel, emerged from behind a softly painted muslin backdrop. He had a cautious look on his face. He was a reliable right hand, organized, quick-witted, with enough bold ideas to keep Elena's creative drive sharpened. But even he seemed worried about her predicament. "You can't enter the gallery showing empty-handed," Miguel said, gently placing a steaming mug of tea on the table. "They gave you that prime slot. This could make your name stand out more than it ever has. You need to deliver something unforgettable." Elena stared at the tea, lips pinched in thought. "I know, but there's no one who can stand in. Everyone's busy or out of town or just not right. I have a specific image in mind, and it's not going to happen if I don't find the right muse." Miguel cleared his throat. He glanced at the worn planks of the studio floor for a moment. "I actually might have an idea. It's a bit unconventional, but maybe my roommate could do this." "Your roommate?" Elena's eyebrows rose. "Is your roommate a professional model?" "No, not at all," Miguel admitted. "But he's got a unique look. You always say you want your portraits to tell a story, right? Something that grabs people's attention, even if they don't know why. Well, I promise you'll want to photograph him." Elena took a sip of her tea, considering. The swirling worry in her mind made her uncharacteristically open to new possibilities. "What's your roommate's name?" "Jamie," Miguel answered, fiddling with a stray thread on his shirt. "He's in his 20s. I've seen him transform his appearance in ways you wouldn't believe. He can do makeup better than anyone I know. He has a whole suitcase of clothing in different styles. You'd think he was a stylist or costumer for some big production with the way he dresses on weekends." Elena tilted her head. "You're serious about this? He's not going to be intimidated by the process?" Miguel shook his head. "He's been on stage before, local theater, not professional modeling, but still, he's no stranger to a camera or an audience, and he's open-minded. I told him you're an acclaimed photographer, that you capture portraits of women, but maybe we can adapt. He might actually be into it." The mention of her widely recognized portraits of women gave Elena pause. For years, her trademark had been showcasing women's faces in ways that revealed hidden layers: fragility behind confidence, resilience behind sorrow, fierce determination behind silent stares. She worried whether photographing a man, even one with a unique look, would fit the style she had become known for. But this was an emergency. She could either do nothing and forfeit her chance at the gallery's coveted slot, or trust Miguel's instincts and see if Jamie could be the muse that rescued her deadline. She rubbed her temples. "Tell him he can come by tomorrow morning. I'll see if something clicks." Miguel's face lit up with relief. "Thank you, Elena. You won't regret this." She watched him hurry off to make the call. The next few minutes she spent in a haze of preparation. She rearranged strobe lights, tested the backdrop's stretch, and scrolled again through reference images to envision how she might adapt her usual approach for a male model. A creeping doubt lingered. Was she straying too far from her artistic identity? Or could this possibility be something extraordinary? The night dragged on as she reworked the scene in her head. When she finally left the studio, well past midnight, the stale air in the hallway felt like a silent warning, urging her to reflect on what was coming next. That evening, she hardly slept, picturing the next day's session, one that might save or sink her entire project. Morning arrived with a surge of unstoppable sunlight and a loud whir from the overhead fan in her studio. Elena arranged her camera gear, tension knotting her shoulders. She fixed the angles of her tripod and set out a row of wide-aperture lenses on the wooden table. She wondered when Jamie would arrive, or if he would arrive at all. Then the elevator gate screeched, and Miguel's voice floated in first. "Jamie, this is Elena. Don't be nervous." Elena turned and spotted a tall figure stepping into the studio. Jamie was about the same height as Miguel, but had narrower shoulders, a delicate frame that contradicted his height. His face had features that walked a fine line between soft and angular. There was a certain elegance in the shape of his cheekbones, and although he wore nondescript jeans and a dark t-shirt, there was a gentle, refined confidence in how he held himself. He set down a medium-sized suitcase, which Elena assumed contained the clothing options Miguel had mentioned. "Hello, Elena," Jamie said politely. "It's nice to meet you. I hear you have an important shoot coming up." Elena swallowed, trying to ignore the lingering doubts in her mind. "I do. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I'm trying to see if we can salvage my gallery submission." Jamie gently tapped a small metal ring on his finger, looking around the studio with interest. "Miguel says you do a lot of portrait work. He mentioned you like to photograph women. How are we going to do that with me?" She took a moment to gather the right words. "Well, I'm open to trying something different. I'm drawn to emotional resonance in portraits, regardless of the subject. If you can bring that uniqueness, then I think we can make magic. Miguel told me you're comfortable with varied styles of dressing and makeup." Jamie nodded. "I enjoy it, actually. Theater taught me to experiment with costumes and personal style. Sometimes I like to dress in a more feminine way. I've done that since I was old enough to attend local events around town. I've got plenty of outfits, so I figured I could show up prepared." Elena offered a small, encouraging smile. "Then let's do it. If you're comfortable, I'd love to see the looks you had in mind." She gestured to the dressing corner behind a folding screen in the studio. "There's a mirror there. I can step away while you change." With a cordial nod, Jamie lifted the handle of his suitcase and disappeared behind the screen. Miguel, shooting Elena a final encouraging glance, retreated to the corner of the studio to handle some administrative phone calls, giving them space to work. Elena paced. She tinkered with her strobe settings, waiting. She caught occasional clinks of hangers, the whisper of fabric sliding over skin, and the click of a makeup palette opening. Her thoughts fluttered with anticipation of what this man, who seemed so gentle in demeanor, would bring forth. After some minutes, Jamie's voice called out, muffled by the partition. "I'm almost ready. I hope you like it." Elena braced herself, not sure what to expect. When Jamie emerged, everything seemed to slow. Gone was the t-shirt and jeans. Instead, a soft, flowing skirt hovered around his knees. His top was a fitted blouse with lace accents at the sleeves and a subtle open neckline. Even more striking was how he had contoured his face. Bold eyes emphasized with careful eyeliner and eyeshadow, along with a gentle lip color that gave just the right balance of flair and elegance. In the studio's light, his delicate cheekbones glowed. He spoke quietly. "You can call me Gemma when I'm dressed like this, if you'd like." Elena found herself momentarily speechless. Her eyes traced every detail, the curve of the blouse, the fluid drape of the skirt, and the grace with which he, Gemma, held that posture. There was confidence there, but also an intangible quality of vulnerability. She realized this was precisely the kind of contrast her photography thrived on. A subject that could be simultaneously strong and delicate, a person who shifted between identities, yet managed to project a coherent presence. It was mesmerizing. "This is amazing," Elena whispered. "You look beautiful." She cleared her throat, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "I mean, you look like you're completely at home in that outfit. The camera is going to love this." Gemma's eyes flickered with a quiet smile. "Thank you. And please don't hold back with your direction. I can switch outfits or styles if you want." Elena gestured to the area draped in pale fabric that she had planned as her shooting backdrop. "Let's start now. Do you mind if I call you Gemma while we work?" "That'd be great," Gemma answered, stepping gently onto the set. The first flash of the strobe blinked across the space, capturing Gemma's silhouette against a subdued, silver-gray cloth. Elena surveyed the images on her camera's display. The transformation from Jamie to Gemma was remarkable, but it wasn't just the clothes or the makeup. Gemma moved differently, shoulders arched, chin tilted, the entire presence exuding an unusual mix of poise and sincerity. Elena felt the familiar thrill in her chest, that sign telling her this was the spark she needed for the new portrait series. She circled around Gemma, weaving through cables and reflective panels. "Hold that thought," Elena said, capturing a glance. "Look away from the lens, eyes to the side. Good." Another flash. "Now look right at me, slightly tilt your chin. Gorgeous." The hours flowed seamlessly. With each click of the shutter, Elena's excitement grew. Gemma would occasionally adjust a stance, shift the drape of the skirt, or change the expression from a cool, introspective look to a bright, resolute gaze. At times, Gemma's gaze held an intensity that felt almost personal, as though addressing Elena's own guarded emotions. It nudged the photographer to immerse herself further in the moment. At one point, Elena paused to change lenses. She found her heartbeats were quickening, partly from the frenzied pace and partly because of the dynamic unfolding in front of the camera. She specialized in creating stunning portraits of women. So why did photographing Gemma, someone who was in essence male but now fully presenting in a feminine style, feel so right? Was it purely the visual intrigue, or was there something else about Gemma that drew her in? Miguel hovered at a distance, watching the shoot. When Elena announced a quick break, Gemma stepped aside to examine the images on the camera's screen. She laughed softly at how the lights exaggerated the shading on her face. "You know," Gemma said, "I'm not just playing dress-up here. It genuinely feels like this is an important part of me. I hope it comes across in the photos." Elena nodded, her tone thoughtful. "It does. That's the key ingredient in good portraiture, the subject's inner truth. No matter what clothes you wear, if the emotion is authentic, it resonates." Gemma's relaxed expression showed gratitude for the understanding. "That's what I aim for." They resumed shooting until the afternoon light shifted, turning to a softer hue that filled the windows. By the time they stopped, Elena's memory card was bursting with images, and her mind was teeming with fresh ideas. She was sure that among these frames was the piece she needed for the gallery. "That's a wrap for the day," she finally announced. "I need to review these tonight, but I suspect we have some powerful shots." "Thank you, Gemma. This was remarkable." A slight flush colored Gemma's cheeks, and the warm glow in those eyes was unmistakable. "I had a lot of fun, actually. If you need anything else, just say the word." "I might take you up on that," Elena admitted, "because I feel like we've only scratched the surface." Gemma excused herself to change back into a simpler outfit, jeans and a soft sweater, and re-emerged as Jamie, hair let down in a relaxed style, though some traces of eyeliner remained around those bright eyes. "Call me whenever you want to continue. I have a few free days." Miguel escorted Jamie out, sending Elena a beaming thumbs up before they vanished into the elevator. Elena sank onto her stool, physically tired yet creatively heightened. She rummaged for her phone to browse through the day's images. Each frame was a mosaic of possibility. Seeing how Jamie became Gemma in front of the camera added layers of nuance. She knew these images were unlike anything she'd ever done. It set her heart racing with creative fervor, but the swirling questions about her own reaction to it all were uncomfortably persistent. That night, the city twinkled through her large windows as she painstakingly reviewed every photo on her computer screen. Time passed in a blur. She drank cup after cup of coffee, momentarily forgetting the pressure of the approaching gallery deadline because the material she had captured was beyond what she had dreamed possible. She found frames that practically burned with raw impact. Gemma looking challengingly into the lens, hand placed softly against her cheek, skirt billowing in a half-turn. In some images, a single earring caught the light with a bright glimmer. In others, Gemma's eyes seemed full of contemplation and the slightest whisper of sadness. It was all so real. But something else tugged at Elena's thoughts. She caught herself enlarging certain shots, scanning every detail of Gemma's face. It wasn't just artistic fascination that made her linger on the curve of Gemma's lips or the arch of the brow. She felt a peculiar pull, an admiration that went beyond creative obsession. The memory of those candid moments between poses kept replaying in her mind. Eventually, Elena forced herself to push the laptop away and rub her tired eyes. She had a responsibility to create a final piece that would blow the gallery curator's mind, not to mention the viewers who would attend. That mission came first. She told herself to stay focused on the art. Whatever personal curiosity she felt for Jamie or Gemma, it was secondary, at least for now. The next few days rushed forward with unstoppable momentum. Elena called Jamie back for additional sessions, each one with a different concept. Sometimes she asked him to bring edgy, contemporary outfits with bold makeup looks. Other days, she wanted softer, romantic garments to highlight gentle lighting. With every new experiment, Gemma came alive in front of the camera, demonstrating an agile command over posture, facial expression, and even subtle gestures that changed the entire atmosphere of the shot. Their rapport grew in an unspoken way. Elena was always professional, but there were moments where the two of them would drift into playful banter, especially when setting up a new sequence of poses. "Pivot your left foot, that's it," Elena would say, kneeling to adjust a floor spotlight. "But keep your shoulders open. Look slightly above the lens, like you're lost in thought but also in control." Gemma tried the pose, but then slipped into a theatrical, over-the-top stare. "I call this my soap opera face." Elena stifled a laugh, snapping the shutter anyway. "I'm sure that'll be a bestseller." There were lighter moments too, like when Gemma wobbled on tall heels and had to cling to a stand to keep from tumbling over, or when Elena realized one of the reflectors made her dark hair frizz, and Gemma stepped in to help, carefully tucking strands behind Elena's ear. Each shoot not only yielded more astounding photos, but also deepened their connection, though neither of them openly addressed the spark simmering between them. One late afternoon, Elena was reviewing shots while Gemma was taking a break. She had insisted on stepping into a new ensemble, this time a form-fitting black dress with a subtle shimmer. Miguel was out picking up a new lens filter, so it was just them in the studio. The hush settled over Elena as she studied a portrait on her camera's display. In the photo, Gemma stared directly at the viewer, confidence shining in her eyes. It was as if the lens had captured a conversation, one speaking of unspoken yearning, boldness, and mystery. She felt a presence beside her and looked up. Gemma stood there, wearing the black dress and holding a pair of lace gloves, still deciding whether to wear them. The dress revealed the shape of Gemma's hips, accentuating every line, while the neckline dipped just enough to be elegant without being ostentatious. "How's it look?" Gemma asked in a quiet voice. Elena's throat caught. She thought her subject looked enchanting in a way that eclipsed what she had witnessed in her other models. "It's stunning," Elena managed to reply, stepping back to see the outfit in its entirety. "Are you comfortable?" Gemma's hesitation was brief. "Yes, I feel good like this. Actually, I feel more like myself in these clothes than in baggy jeans. The first time I tried on women's clothing, I felt an odd sense of relief, but also excitement, like I was finding a hidden aspect of me. It felt genuine." Elena took in a breath. She remembered her own younger years, experimenting with the camera and lighting, ignoring everyone who told her photography was a tough career path. She recalled how liberating it was to discover something she truly cared about, though it also came with uncertainty about what others would think. She recognized that same kind of joy and tension in Gemma's eyes. It was very human, and it moved her. She had to tread carefully, though, to keep the conversation safe for both of them. "You look radiant. Let's keep that outfit." Elena walked to the camera setup, flipping a switch on the main strobe. "We only have a few hours left of good daylight, so let's see what we can do with the natural light from the windows." They got into position. Gemma posed by the large windows, the city skyline forming a blurred mosaic behind her as Elena used a wide aperture. The golden light glided over Gemma's silhouette, creating a gentle halo around the edges of the dress. Each shot carried more than just aesthetic beauty. It conveyed an intimate sincerity that gave Elena a slight shiver each time she pressed the shutter. Soon, the natural light began to fade, and Elena paused for a final break. She signaled Gemma to relax. They walked together toward the corner where Elena had draped soft lounge chairs for guests. Gemma pulled a shawl around her shoulders to fend off the evening chill creeping in. Elena poured 2 glasses of water from a nearby carafe and offered one to Gemma. They sipped in companionable quiet before Gemma spoke, voice calm yet reflective. "I think I see the photography spark in you. Whenever we shoot, you become so alive. It's like you step into a zone no one else can access. It's something to witness." Elena blinked, slightly surprised. "I guess I've never known how else to work. Ever since I was young, behind a camera was the only place I felt fully focused." Gemma curled a leg beneath her on the chair, her expression thoughtful. "Well, thanks for sharing that space with me. Modeling can feel daunting, but you've made it feel worthwhile." Elena's heart fluttered. She found her gaze locked on Gemma's face, noticing the subtle lines of eyeliner. Up close, she could see how carefully the colors blended into the warm hue of Gemma's cheeks. "It's been a gift for me as well," she responded softly. Her eyes flicked to the floor. "Your presence, your ability to shift between Jamie and Gemma, has shown me new creative sides I didn't know I could explore. I'm grateful. I think it's going to revolutionize this show." Gemma's lips curved in a half smile. "Revolutionize, huh? That's a big word for a local gallery exhibit." Elena's cheeks heated. "Well, maybe I'm being dramatic, but I sense something extraordinary in what we've captured." They left the studio an hour later, each stepping into the nighttime hush with thoughts swirling. Elena felt the energy in her chest. She recognized that the next step was reviewing all the final images and selecting the one that would anchor her exhibit. Yet she suspected something else was growing in her mind, a fascination, or perhaps more, toward Jamie and Gemma alike. She tried to label it, but couldn't. Instead, she let the question settle, deciding to let time and her own honesty guide her. For the next few days, Elena holed up in her editing suite. The walls were bare except for pinned-up test prints of Gemma's portraits in various stages. She trimmed edges, adjusted color balance, tried black and white conversions for certain shots. Every click, every brush of the stylus on her editing tablet was done with painstaking attention. She had to do justice to the images, to her craft, and to Gemma, who had poured a vulnerable honesty into those shoots. Miguel visited occasionally, carrying groceries or extra cords, each time briefly scanning the progress. "Elena," he said one afternoon, "these photos are mesmerizing. How are you going to pick just one or two for the gallery?" "I have no idea," Elena sighed, gazing at a large monitor displaying Gemma in a delicate pose. "I might do a small series. The curator only wanted a single piece from each artist, but maybe I can negotiate a small triptych." "They won't be able to say no," Miguel predicted, handing her a stack of photo paper. "I mean, look at these. I can't stop looking at them myself." Elena allowed herself a moment of pride, though it was tempered by the swirl of half-formed feelings inside her. The images made her feel something rare and potent. She tried not to analyze that too deeply. Deadline first, introspection later. At last, the day came to deliver her final selection to the gallery. Elena carefully packed a large print and a smaller companion piece into protective tubes. As she readied her bag, she wondered if she should invite Jamie to come see the final product in person. She typed a quick text, feeling an undercurrent of nerves. "Hi, Jamie. Heading to the gallery soon to submit the final portraits. Thought you might want to join, if you're free." She used his male name in the text. She wasn't sure if Gemma was how he preferred to be addressed all the time, or if it was only when he dressed that way. Moments later, her phone buzzed. "Sure, I'd love to come by. Thank you for inviting me." Elena felt a small rush of warmth and told him where to meet her. When she arrived outside the gallery, a tall building with an airy, light-filled foyer, she saw Jamie stepping out of a cab. He looked casual, in a crisp button-down shirt and dark trousers. Yet there was still something gracefully fluid about him, a certain lift in his posture, a confident stride that made him stand out from everyone else on the bustling sidewalk. "Thanks for letting me be part of this," Jamie said, greeting her with a friendly smile. "Is this the big moment where you hand in your best work?" "It is," Elena confirmed, tapping the tubes in her arms. Months of planning, stress, sleepless nights, all culminating in these. She laughed, feeling a release from so many days of anxiety. "I can't believe it's finally happening." They entered the gallery, the air smelling faintly of fresh paint and new plaster. An administrator behind a desk directed them to the receiving area. Jamie followed Elena with quiet awe, scanning the lofty ceilings, the spare architecture, the hushed ambiance. Several other artists were also delivering their final pieces, the atmosphere charged with a hushed sense of importance. The curator, a poised individual in a well-tailored suit, approached Elena. "I trust you have something spectacular for us, given your past work," they said, glancing curiously at Jamie. Elena carefully unrolled the print, revealing a close-up portrait of Gemma in a half-profile, the lighting casting a dramatic interplay of shadow and brightness. The makeup was subtle but intentional, and the expression was poised on that borderline between confidence and longing. The small companion piece she unrolled next showed Gemma in a different position, eyes lifted, arms gracefully raised, almost like a figure from a contemporary dance performance. A hush fell over the table as a few staff members stepped nearer to admire. "This is different," the curator said slowly, meeting Elena's eyes. "You usually photograph women, and you do so flawlessly. There is a distinct emotional depth you capture in each subject. I must say, this is unexpected, but quite extraordinary." Elena swallowed, choosing her words carefully. "The subject in these images is an exceptional individual. I wanted to explore new territory. This might be the best example of my style yet." The curator nodded, eyes lingering on the portrait. "We'll make sure to mount it properly. With your permission, I'd like to position your piece in a prominent spot. It'll definitely stir conversation." Elena felt her shoulders loosen with relief. "I'd love that." They finished the drop-off process, leaving the gallery with a shared sense of victory. Outside, Jamie and Elena walked a few blocks, eventually settling on a small cafe with an open window where they ordered iced drinks and found a table near the back. "I have to say," Jamie murmured, leaning on the table, "seeing the print up close like that was, I don't know, I got goosebumps. I've never thought of my face as something that could hang in a professional gallery." Elena reached out and brushed his hand in a friendly gesture. "It's not just your face. It's the truth that comes through in those shots. You brought so much sincerity, and it makes all the difference." He squeezed her hand back gently, then let go, a faint color on his cheeks. "Thank you. Really." As they sipped their drinks, they talked about inconsequential things: the weather, the city's upcoming events, the unpredictable hours Elena kept while preparing for exhibits. But the undercurrent, that deeper connection building between them since the first photo session, hovered in the quiet spaces between sentences. They felt it, though neither openly named it. An unspoken understanding kept them from venturing into that topic too abruptly. Days rolled by, turning into a week. The gallery's opening night was fast approaching. Elena sent invitations, made last-minute adjustments, and found herself selecting an outfit that might make her feel confident but not overshadow her own work. Miguel teased her that she was dressing up more than usual. "You've never cared about your clothes at these openings," he pointed out, straightening the collar of her sleek black blazer. "What's changed?" She gave him a playful nudge. "Nothing's changed. I just want to look presentable." He arched an amused eyebrow. "Sure." When opening night arrived, the gallery was aglow of sophistication. People wandered through, wine glasses in hand, pausing before each displayed piece to murmur or comment. Elena's portrait of Gemma took center stage on a large wall, drawing a small crowd. She watched from a short distance, noticing how viewers tilted their heads, discussing and pointing, seemingly moved by the mixture of femininity and something else intangible in the photo. Among the audience, Elena spotted Jamie. He was dressed that evening with subtle flair, slim-fit slacks, a gracefully cut blouse, and a faint trace of eye makeup that accentuated his gentle eyes. He wasn't fully in Gemma's style, but there was a nod to it in his outfit, enough that the lines between masculine and feminine were elegantly blurred. He caught Elena's eye across the room and offered a warm grin. She excused herself from a conversation with a critic and made her way to him. Up close, he radiated excitement tinged with a bit of nerves. "This is quite an event," he said, glancing around. "I feel like a kid in a candy store, seeing so much art." Elena let out a short laugh. "Well, part of that art tonight is thanks to you. People keep complimenting me on the portrait. They want to know who this captivating figure is." His cheeks rose in a shy smile. "I'm glad they like it. Are you doing okay? You must be exhausted after everything." She shook her head. "I'm tired, but I'm also exhilarated." Her eyes traveled his face, her voice softer. "I'd love to show you the piece up close. We can walk through the crowd, and I'll play the role of the proud photographer introducing her muse." He dipped his head in assent. Together they navigated the clusters of guests until they stood in front of the portrait. There it was, mounted with careful lighting that emphasized the interplay of shadow and hue. People lingering nearby slid aside politely, allowing them room. Jamie studied the image of Gemma's face, the reflection from the protective glass shimmering. "That's me," he breathed in an awed tone. "I hardly recognize it as the me I see in the mirror." There's so much more depth in those eyes. Elena placed a hand on his arm. That's because you brought every layer of yourself into that moment, and I was lucky enough to capture it. They stood there for a moment, silent. The chatter of the gallery receded into a distant hum. Cautiously, Elena slid her hand down to his. The contact was gentle, a mere brush of fingers, yet enough that Jamie felt it and glanced at her, expression uncertain but open. "Do you want to step out for some air?" Elena asked quietly. Jamie nodded, and they slipped away from the throng, edging toward the side doors that led to a small sculpture garden. It was quieter there, tucked behind a few hedges. The overhead lamps provided soft illumination, and a gentle breeze ruffled the leaves. They settled onto a wooden bench. Elena exhaled a shaky breath. Her adrenaline from the successful opening was beginning to settle, replaced by a stirring inside that she had tried for weeks to keep at bay. Jamie spoke first, voice tentative. "It's a beautiful night. Everything is so surreal. This gallery, that photo, the rush of seeing people react to it. I guess I never expected to be part of something like this." Elena considered a response, feeling the weight of the moment. "It's surreal for me too. I wanted to photograph a muse, and I found someone I can't quite define. Sometimes I look at you and see a man with distinctive features, just an intriguing person. Sometimes I see Gemma, fierce and poised. But above all that, I see someone who's real, who has a rare spark." He turned to look at her. "And what do you do with that spark?" She studied the faint lines near his eyes, the slope of his jaw, so different yet reminiscent of Gemma's face. "I'm trying to figure it out. When I started this project, it was about meeting a deadline. But then I realized I was drawn in by more than just your look. It's been confusing. I worry that I'm mixing my artistic vision with a more personal attraction, and I don't want to blur lines that might cause harm." He placed a tentative hand on hers, letting the gentle weight of his palm rest there. "I'm not sure what I feel either. But I know that with each session, I looked forward not just to dressing up and modeling, but to spending time with you. There's something about you that makes me feel safe to show different sides of who I am." Elena's heart beat faster. She could sense both caution and yearning inside herself. "I don't want to rush anything or make assumptions." He nodded, turning to face her more fully. The light from a nearby lamp cast a soft sheen on his hair. "Neither do I. But maybe we can just let it be what it is, without demanding a label tonight. We can see how it feels tomorrow and the next day." Elena found a gentle relief in that answer. "I'd like that. It's been a long time since I allowed myself to just see where something goes." They sat quietly for a few more minutes, each absorbing the warmth of the other's presence. The hush of the sculpture garden felt like a protective barrier around them, giving them space to breathe and consider the swirl of possibilities. Eventually, laughter and conversation wafted from the gallery doors, reminding them that the night's event was still ongoing. "We should probably head back before they think I've vanished," Elena said, standing. Jamie rose as well, offering a slight smile. "Lead the way. After all, it's your big night." They rejoined the gathering, navigating the space side by side. Elena fielded congratulations, politely answered questions from potential buyers, and even accepted an invitation to submit more work in future exhibitions. Jamie lingered near the portrait at times, overhearing the spectators' remarks about the subject's arresting features and the subtle intensity in the eyes. He never revealed himself as the person in the photograph, quietly letting the art speak on its own. By the end of the night, Elena was glowing with relief and a sense of accomplishment. The praise had been effusive, and her submission seemed poised to be one of the standouts of the entire show. But amid that professional success, she felt a more personal stirring, a cautious optimism that what was emerging between her and Jamie was something precious. Before parting ways, they paused near the gallery's entrance, where the final guests trickled out into the street. Miguel was talking with a group of acquaintances, so Elena and Jamie had a moment to themselves. "Congratulations, truly," Jamie said, voice just above a whisper. "I'm honored you chose me as your muse. I hope this opens more doors for you. I have no doubt it will." Elena offered a small, sincere smile. "You have no idea what a difference you made. I'm excited to see what comes next, not just for this exhibit, but beyond." They exchanged a gentle, fleeting hug, aware that eyes were still around them. It was a warm embrace, one that hinted at many things left unspoken. "Good night," Jamie said quietly, letting his hand slide away. "I'll see you soon." "Good night," she echoed, her voice holding a tremor of emotion. She watched him step into the darkness, every step pulling her in two directions, one of appreciation that she had found such a remarkable muse and companion, the other of curiosity about where the interplay of art and attraction would lead them next. In the days that followed, Elena found a new wave of recognition flooding in. Local critics singled out her piece as one of the highlights. One prominent reviewer wrote a column praising the vulnerability in the portrait, describing it as a bold revelation of identity within a shifting world. Art blogs began featuring glimpses of her photograph online, and social media buzzed with speculation about the unseen subject. Elena tried to keep pace, balancing the professional demands while continuing a careful dance with Jamie. They texted every day, sometimes about the exhibit's reception, sometimes just to share mundane details of life. They met for coffee occasionally, seeking quiet corners where they could talk freely. On some of those meetups, Jamie wore a blend of feminine and masculine elements, while on others, he chose something more traditionally male. Once, Elena arrived to find Gemma waiting in a floral dress, hair styled softly, turning heads in the cafe. Though the lines between them remained unspoken, each moment they shared added a new layer of closeness. Elena felt the electricity of creativity stirring whenever they sat down together. She sketched new photographic ideas on napkins, imagining how to continue exploring Gemma's shifting styles in future sessions. But deeper than that, she felt an emotional bond forming, a kind of synergy that wove art and affection together in ways that were both exhilarating and daunting. As the weeks stretched into a month after the opening, Elena scheduled a formal celebration dinner for herself, Miguel, and close friends. She invited Jamie, letting him choose how to appear. That evening, he arrived in a flowing blouse, fitted pants, and stylish boots. A subtle necklace added a touch of grace, and soft makeup highlighted his eyes once again. Elena felt her heart skip when she opened the door. "You look amazing," she said simply, stepping aside so he could enter her loft. He smiled gently, slipping inside and glancing around at her rearranged space. "You've been busy." Indeed, the studio had changed since their initial shoots, with new backdrops, new props, and test prints of other subjects pinned to the walls. Yet a few of Gemma's photos remained displayed. It seemed Elena couldn't bring herself to replace them. "I have," she admitted, "but I always keep reminders of what inspires me most." She motioned for him to join the others in the living area, where Miguel and two more friends chatted about the success of the exhibit. The evening passed with conversation, music, and a celebratory energy. Elena told funny anecdotes about her earlier photography days. Miguel shared embarrassing stories about her intense work habits, and Jamie fielded polite questions from the others, though he skirted around the subject of his modeling in the exhibit. At one point, Elena noticed him standing quietly on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. She excused herself from the group and slipped outside to join him. A gentle wind ruffled his hair. He turned, wearing that thoughtful half-smile that always sparked something in her chest. "It's nice out here," he said. I needed some fresh air. She leaned against the railing, enjoying the city's sparkling skyline. Everyone in there is in good spirits. Even Miguel is relaxed, which is a miracle. Jamie chuckled. So how are you feeling truly? This milestone's passed. Your exhibit's a success, and more people will want your work. Elena considered. I'm proud, I guess. But it's not just about the exhibit. It's about what I learned from you. I realized that my photography can expand, that art can push boundaries I never dared to cross before. And personally, she trailed off, unsure how to articulate the swirl of sentiment in her head. Jamie waited, letting her gather her thoughts. She inhaled. Personally, I've discovered something in you, in how comfortable you are navigating these different sides of yourself, that calls to me. I'm not saying I entirely understand it, but I'm drawn to it. And you. A faint warmth showed in Jamie's eyes. He stepped closer, enough that the city's ambient glow lit his face. I feel the same. You've seen me, both as Jamie and as Gemma, and you never questioned it or judged me. You just embraced it as part of the artistry and part of who I am. That's special. They stood there, a subtle closeness building. Elena glanced through the open doorway, noticing that the others were preoccupied. Her heart hammered. She turned back to Jamie. Before she could think too hard or second-guess herself, she leaned in and pressed her lips gently to his, a soft, fleeting kiss that held more questions than answers. Jamie's lips responded with equal tenderness, a hint of surprise and relief mingling in the moment. They drew back, both slightly breathless, eyes searching each other's expressions. So, he murmured, voice low, does that make me your official muse now? Elena smiled, a tiny laugh escaping. I think you've been that for a while, but now, maybe you're something more. They stayed there on the balcony, the hum of life drifting up from the streets below, while the soft glow of Elena's living room framed them from behind. It was a moment that sealed a new chapter in both of their lives, blending creativity and kinship, overshadowing any lingering uncertainties. Eventually, they returned to the party, exchanging glances that hinted at a shared secret. But the others were too engrossed in their own discussions to notice, and Elena was content to keep this new bond between her and Jamie, at least for a little while longer. That night, once the guests departed, Jamie stayed behind to help clean up. They moved quietly through the loft, picking up glasses, tossing out empty bottles, neither feeling the need to fill the silence with words. At last, the place was tidy. Jamie paused near the door, taking his jacket in hand. I should get going, he said softly, though his gaze lingered on Elena's face. Thank you for tonight. It was memorable. She studied him for a second, letting the significance of what they shared on the balcony linger in the air. Thank you for being part of it. I'm sure we'll talk tomorrow? He nodded, and with a final warm parting look, stepped out. Elena locked the door behind him, leaning her back against it, letting out a shuddering breath. Something deep in her chest felt settled, as though after so many days and nights of longing, she had found a direction, however uncertain it might be. In the following weeks, Elena began a new series, one that built on the success of the gallery piece. She and Jamie often collaborated in private shoots, exploring new angles and themes. Sometimes these sessions were purely artistic, each shot meticulously planned. Other times they were playful, with Gemma improvising dramatic outfits and Elena photographing with spontaneous zeal. Outside the studio, they navigated whatever lay between them with caution, but also curiosity. Some evenings, they met at small restaurants or took walks through the quiet residential neighborhoods, sharing bits of their histories. Jamie spoke of his childhood, his exploration of theater, the earliest times he dared to try on clothing not traditionally meant for men. Elena confided her artistic struggles, her fear of stagnation, and how the introduction of Gemma into her photography had reawakened her sense of possibility. Their connection was not without challenges. Occasionally, Elena worried about how to share this bond with friends, or how to define it. Jamie had moments of insecurity, uncertain if Elena was truly drawn to who he was, or only to his mesmerizing presence in front of the camera. Yet those moments often resolved in honest conversations, or even in the simple act of sitting together in comfortable silence, letting each other exist without pressure or judgment. At times, they returned to the question of identity, of what it meant for Jamie to be both Jamie and Gemma. In one quiet afternoon, as they sat in Elena's studio reviewing images on a large monitor, he spoke about it more openly. "Sometimes I feel like I should choose," he admitted, eyes lingering on a photograph of Gemma in a flowing gown. "But I like both. I like exploring both. Maybe that bothers some people, but I can't just pick one." Elena studied him, thinking of all the different phases she'd captured. "I don't think you need to pick. I don't see you as half of anything. You're complete as you are. Gemma is real, Jamie is real, and I like that I get to see both." She expected him to voice more of his worries, but he just smiled in a grateful way. "Then I guess that's all that matters in this moment." Life moved forward. The gallery piece remained a hit, and Elena sold a limited number of large-scale prints, each transaction reminding her that the portrait had tapped into something universal for many viewers. She and Jamie found a gentle equilibrium that defied labels, but brought them closer in ways that felt both intimate and exhilarating. One afternoon, months after the opening, Elena received an email from a major publication. They requested a feature on her work, praising the innovative nature of her latest portraits. Elena was overjoyed, though she also felt a twinge of nerves at the thought of so many eyes possibly fixating on Jamie's image and, by extension, on their unique bond. She hurried to share the news with him. When she arrived at his apartment, she found him sorting through costumes for a small community theater performance he occasionally took part in. Fabrics of every shade spilled across the couch, testifying to his vivid sense of style. "That's huge," Jamie exclaimed when she told him about the magazine's request. "You'll be known well beyond this city." Elena exhaled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "They want to do an interview and a photo spread, maybe talk about my creative process and the story behind the piece. That includes you, essentially." He fiddled with a shimmering turquoise scarf. "Do you want me to be involved? Like, do they want an interview with me too?" "I'm not sure. They might. But it's entirely up to you. If you prefer to keep a low profile, I understand. I just wouldn't want to misrepresent anything if they ask about you." Jamie went quiet, eyes thoughtful. Then he placed the scarf aside. "You've been so open about me, about Gemma. I think if it helps your story, I'd be open to an interview, but only if you feel it's necessary. I'm not trying to steal the spotlight." Elena shook her head, stepping forward to take his hand. "It's never about that. The article will focus on my work, but your presence is part of that art's core. I can't pretend it came out of thin air. If you're willing, I'd like for the world to meet the person behind those photos. You might inspire others who see themselves in your journey, though it is a delicate step." He squeezed her hand, expression earnest. "Let's do it. I feel ready." They embraced, a sense of shared determination passing between them. They both knew that letting the public see more of their bond would also expose them to potential misunderstandings. Yet something about that risk felt worth it, a step toward forging their own path on their own terms. Soon, the day of the interview arrived. A small team from the magazine visited Elena's loft, while Jamie arrived with a carefully assembled outfit that blended subtle masculine lines and delicate accessories. The journalist asked questions about Elena's background, her artistic influences, and then pivoted toward the subject of her breakthrough portrait. "That image has created quite a stir," the journalist remarked, setting a voice recorder on the table. "Some call it a testament to identity's fluid nature. Others see it as a statement on beauty beyond traditional norms. What does it mean to you?" Elena glanced at Jamie, who offered a nod of encouragement. "To me, it's a collaboration with someone who isn't confined by strict definitions. The piece is about capturing a sense of possibility. The subject, who I sometimes call Gemma, is my muse. Beyond labels, we aim to reflect humanity's broad spectrum and the emotional truth that emerges when someone stands comfortably in the light." The journalist then turned to Jamie. "And how do you feel about being in the spotlight? Many are curious about the person in the photo." Jamie shifted, calm but cautious. "I'm still coming to terms with the public interest," he said gently, avoiding specific terms or overly detailed statements. "What matters most is that we created something genuine. The outfits and styling are part of me, and Elena saw that. We just let it come through." The interview concluded without any sensational questions, leaving both Elena and Jamie relieved. As the team left, the journalist thanked them. "I think our readers will appreciate your honesty and the warmth behind the collaboration." When the article finally appeared, it was accompanied by some of Elena's images, both the original portrait and a few new shots. The feature praised the photographer's insight, the subject's striking presence, and the synergy between them. It garnered a wave of responses that soared well beyond local art circles. Messages poured in from people inspired by Jamie's boldness and Elena's willingness to embrace a broader perspective in her artistry. In the aftermath, Elena stood one evening in her studio, gazing at the prints that spanned her walls. She recalled how frantic and uncertain she had been before that first shoot with Jamie. The idea of photographing a man, any man, had seemed entirely out of line with her usual style. Now she saw that opening herself to that risk had expanded her universe, both professionally and personally. Jamie appeared behind her in the reflection of a framed photo, slipping inside quietly, a gentle expression on his face. He placed an arm around her waist and rested his chin lightly on her shoulder. "Deep in thought?" "Just remembering how I almost didn't do that first shoot because I thought it wouldn't fit my style," she answered. "That would have been my biggest regret." He pressed a soft kiss to her temple, a gesture that felt as natural now as blinking. "Fate has a funny way of surprising us." They stood there, letting the studio's low lamplight cast their shadows against the walls, each image a testament to everything they had experienced together. The line between photographer and model had become something else entirely, an evolving relationship woven through respect, curiosity, and genuine affection. Neither knew exactly what the future held, and neither wanted to confine it to a simple category. "Are you happy?" Jamie asked softly. Elena turned to face him, a gentle glow in her eyes. "Yes," she said, "I am. More than I've been in a long time." Jamie responded with a quiet, contented smile. "I am too." In that simple exchange, they acknowledged the bond that had formed through art, trust, and mutual fascination. Their story was not a tidy tale wrapped in neat definitions. It was messy, vibrant, and distinctly real. A product of two people who met at a crossroads of creativity and found in each other something that challenged expectations and opened new doors. As they stood amid the silent witness of dozens of portraits, Elena allowed herself one final reflection on how far they had come. She knew that tomorrow might bring new challenges, but the presence of Jamie by her side and Gemma in her lens gave her the confidence to face them. and she was certain that together they could continue shaping a world where their partnership, both behind and in front of the camera, offered a glimpse into the many forms truth could take.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.